Hello everyone! That's not any sound. What's going on? Is that better? Hello? Oh. Hello! Welcome everyone to Bloodbowl Live for today's Monday Night Roundup. I've got no idea what's going on there. I was having all sorts of technical issues. Starting it, stopping it, couldn't hear the sound. Anyway, we're here now, here to do a roundup, which will probably be quite a quick one, to be fair, because we've only got the two games, but those two games are the two semi-finals. So we have our finalists now. 28 teams whittled down to the final two, and we'll have a little look at how it is they got there. So probably not a long one this week. Let's dive straight in and fly through. First game that we had, Tetanus Hotspurs versus the Iceborne Raiders. Going into this game, Tetanus Hotspurs unbeaten run of 8 games going into this one, only conceded 2 touchdowns. Iceborne Raiders unbeaten run of 8 games and going into it with just conceding 2 touchdowns. So pretty even looking at the two squads. John with the Iceborne Raiders had chosen sort of a bit more particularly the skills that he was going to put on players, saved up the SPP to do so. Tetanus Hotspurs had gone for random mutations across the board, so it was a mutated mess versus a blocky wall. And based on the defence of the two teams, I think a low-scoring game was probably to be expected, really. Let's have a little scroll down and have a little look at this one, shall we? I'm going to make my view of it a little bit bigger because I can't really see it. There we go. So, pretty similar team values going into it. Tetanus Hotspurs taking a brutal blocker. Straight off the bat, a Pescator is killed in the first half. John, a very sort of good controlled half from the Norse team. Did well to sort of control the play, get to a scoring position and stall. And they twice this season, some of you will know, John has been tempted by a crowd surf or something like that before taking the touchdown, and twice he has then missed out on actually scoring the touchdown and ended up going in 0-0 at half time when he could have been 1 touchdown up. Scott gave him that invitation this time round, left that little invitation hovering there for that crowd surf, but this time he did ignore it to get the touchdown on turn 8. Second half comes along, and as we can see, a bit more in the way of injuries. Rotspawn dies on turn 11. That's the second Rotspawn that has been killed in this game. The Yeti then goes out as well. I believe the Yeti comes off the pitch as well. Both big guys go in the space of a couple of turns. And it was really, really tight in that second half. It could have, on multiple occasions, swung either way. The Pescators did well at getting the ball down, patiently waited for sort of the breakthrough, and got into a good position. But the thing that you can do with this Norse team, and the thing that John's done quite well, is you can do those kind of 2 dice uphill, 1 dice blocks, because you've got some good skills on there to free up the ball, which is what happened. Freed the ball up nicely and then collected the ball and ran it just as far as they could out of the way, getting the ball nice into a safe space, preventing the Hotspurs from being able to score. It was a very close game. It's one of the ones that we streamed. You go onto the YouTube channel, have a look at it. It's 2 experienced coaches playing very well. They've played each other before. They know each other. It was actually a really nice game to watch. Sometimes games get very tense. I'm a a culprit of this, and I get very tense and worked up when we get towards the end of a game. And these guys didn't do that. It was really nice one to watch. Two really good sports, and I think either deserved their place in the final, and John just had the better of the Nurgle team today. Well done to John. It's not his first final. He's got one title already. He'll be going for that second one. Scott's made every single semi-final, and I believe he goes. I believe it alternates, pretty much alternates with semi-final, final, semi-final, final, semi-final. So maybe next year will be his year. He'll still get the chance to play for third place. We'll have a look at who his third place opponent will be shortly. But we'll jump on to the next game. So John is our first finalist, and who will John face in the final? It's going to be some block, and it's going to be some dwarves in what was another incredibly close game. I think arguably entertainment factor wise, this was possibly our game of the season. I think it really was. We had two coaches who I think both in different ways have got the kind of crowd, the fans, the other coaches on their side, really. The Wordhollow Wanderers, Simon comes into this season without a single league win, and he's in a semi-final. Really impressive turnaround in form. The Dwarfs had a good, I say it over and over again, had a great tournament before the league started, and came in with this Dwarf team in a tough group that they had to get out of, and have done really well. They got through to the last 16 in extra time. They got through the quarterfinals in extra time, and then again here in the semi-final they go through in extra time. Having a look at how this one went down, let's have a little scroll. Many inducements allowed a brutal blocker and Ripper Bogrot to come in. Ripper very key in this game, and we'll see why later. And the first 2 or 3 turns for both sides ended in a turnover. It was a bit of a turnover mess to start with. Rat Ogre failed activation and needed a reroll. No, didn't fail activation. Succeeded on the activation. Got 2 dice both down. Needed a loner reroll, which they failed. Turnover. 1 dice block gets a skull for the dwarfs. Turnover. Back over to the water. It just kept. It was very quick first few turns. Trollslayer gets casualty. Slowly the dwarves did start to pick away at those snotlings in that first half. And it did look like they maybe had the better momentum in the game. And they got the ball, they had the ball freed, and then some good play by the Underworld team. Snotling dodging their way in to create support. 2 dice blitz, knocks down the ball from the ball carrier, which bounces onto the guy who did the blitz, who then could run down to a pretty safe spot further down the field in order to eventually get the touchdown on turn 7. When Simon scored, he tends to score quickly, and this was made difficult for him. But he goes in 1-0 up at half-time, and then the second half comes along, and the Dwarfs have the control in the second half, again taking Snotlings out of the game. Ripper does kill a lineman en route, but various Snotlings get taken out, knocked out. Not many players on the pitch for the Wanderers by the end. But a touchdown comes on turn 16. He did stall to turn 16. He could have scored sooner, but he knows how quickly this Wanderers team can score. So, 1-1, we go to extra time, and immediately in extra time, we get a 1-turn touchdown. The ball is collected, it's handed off to Ripper, who chucks the Snotling down the pitch. The scatter is favourable, pushing it closer to the end zone, doesn't even need a rush, succeeds on the landing, and goes in and scores. And suddenly this Dwarf team is looking at either a roll-off or needing 2 touchdowns in a half, which, Dwarves are not pacey. It's not an easy thing to do, and it's exactly what Elliot did. In 4 turns, controlled the ball nicely, absolutely had the player advantage. Most of this extra time was about 10 versus 5 or 10 versus 6. had made that extra men count and got the ball down, scored on turn 20. 4 turns left. And the Wanderers actually looked like they were maybe going to pull something off. They had about 5 players on the pitch. Looked like they were maybe going to do something. And the pass was, unfortunately, didn't come off. Ball landed surrounded by dwarfs that were on the floor, to be fair. But landed in an awful place, turnover, and the dwarfs pick up the ball, hand off, and a free dwarf runs it way out of the way, so that they're not going to be reached by any of the Wanderers players. A bit of stalling, then taking down. He didn't want to. Elliot did not want to allow those Wanderers to have any chance of a turn. Turn 24 1-turn touchdown, because they'd already pulled off the 1-turn touchdown, so stalled really well, and last move of the game, walking in to take the 3-2 win. Again, I'd recommend watching this one. It was a really entertaining game. Some really, some shenanigans, some hijinks, and actually just some generally good play. And two coaches who, at different points, both kind of, you could even hear it in their voices at different points in the game, feeling a bit dejected by the way their luck was going. And neither of them stopped. They both kept going. Neither of them gave up. And either deserved their place in the final, but Elliot, getting those 2 touchdowns, edges it there. Well done to Elliot. I think he will be a heavily supported coach. He's the youngest coach in the league. He's played so well this season, and I think he's going to have a lot of fans on his side. Simon with the Wanderers has had the season of all seasons for him. Some really good wins, some really good performances against some really strong teams, and should be really pleased with this run, and he's got a 3rd place playoff as well to see if he can get himself some silverware out of this season. So we've got our final then, the Numpties versus the Iceborne Raiders. Somebody once said to me that the Norse team are just a dwarf team with a few compromises. So we've got 2 very blocky teams facing each other here. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I wouldn't like to call it. I wouldn't like